Welcome to Tangential Soup, a weekly podcast discussing life in Australia, technology, food, fitness, and the like, hosted by myself, David Caddy, Melburnian, independent developer and tea enthusiast, as well as my good childhood friend, Alexander Carr, Sydney Sider, slave to the man, karate practitioner, and lover of adventure. This week we talk about Tesla charging stations, SpaceX and Australian high schools, Elon Musk's AI champ, and YouTube experiments. So this week I just wanted to start with a little bit of a PSA in that there's a bunch of cars being affected by a DOTA Airbag Recall. It's a fairly serious problem because the airbags from this particular vendor have been found to, in certain circumstances, sort of go off in an explosive fashion and actually discharge shrapnel, which is clearly not what you want in an accident. So I highly suggest you look in the link that we'll have in the show notes to check if your vehicle is affected. But there's a huge range from BMWs, Hondas, Mazdas, Mitsubishi, Nissan, Subarus, and Toyota, as well as some motorcycles. Mainly between the years of 2001 and 2012. But again, go to the link, check your vehicle, and also check in your particular country because it could vary a little bit. But at least in Australia, there's dozens and dozens of vehicles that are affected by this, and that you should immediately go back to where you got the vehicle from and have them swap over those airbags for you.
Interesting thing to happen, isn't it?
Yes.
For an airbag, something that serves a very basic purpose, for it to do something like this is quite strange.
Yeah, they found that was the materials that they made it out of, just slightly different from a lot of vendors. Over time has been shown to not wear as well as some others, and so can lead to this particular sort of circumstance. And a number of people have been killed by this, so it's pretty serious. And this company, Takata, is sort of in liquidation, but they're keeping manufacturing going for as long as they need to be able to get enough corrected airbags out into the market to fulfill all the recalls. And they're actually relying on a lot of competitors to help them with the manufacturing.
Oh, there you go.
But then there'll be no more. So it's that serious.
Just goes to show what comes of shoddy workmanship. And I guess skimping on parts, which is obviously what they've done here.
Well, yeah, it's sort of hard to know whether they did it deliberately or they just didn't know what the effect would be sort of for, like they didn't do enough long-term testing or something. It might not have been skipping on the parts, it might have been skimping on the testing. But whatever it is, it's not a good situation. So again, go check your vehicle and make sure if it needs to be changed over, it is.
Yeah, wow. It's something well worth doing.
Sort of also in the automotive vein, I saw an article the other day from Property Observer saying that there's a large number of Tesla charging stations to be rolled out across the east coast of Australia in various stockland shopping centres, which is good news, I think, because although electric vehicles are great, without these charging stations, it's pretty hard to go on any sort of long trips, especially in Australia because we're such a large country and there's a lot of distance between a lot of different things here. It makes sense that we need more charging stations before people will actually really adopt electric vehicles en masse. So this is, I think, the first or one of the initial steps towards that ultimate goal.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's interesting what you were telling me earlier, that this company has put in Tesla charging stations as opposed to charging stations which might charge other electric cars.
Yes.
As they have different sockets that they use and different plugs.
Yes. I could be wrong, but I think there is actually adapters you can get. So if you want to carry one of those around, you might still be able to use a Tesla charging station. But I think the thing is, at this point, even though there is sort of one other main standard, there is so few competitor electric vehicles being sold outside of Tesla still. The Nissan Leaf was discontinued sort of for a couple of years. They're bringing that back. Toyota's got a couple. BMW's got this really expensive one. They do exist, but it's still at such low volumes. I mean, Tesla's low volumes, but it's like the leader. So maybe they'll win out with their sort of standard.
I suppose there's a lot to be said for being the first in the market, and now that there are Tesla charging stations, people will see them and think that they might want to get a Tesla car. So it's all very good for them.
Absolutely. It's good publicity. It's another incentive to buy Tesla.
Are you aware, can you just plug a car into like a wall socket, or do you need a specific charging station?
You can. You can just plug it into standard 240 volt power. It's recommended that you get 3-phase electricity put into your property. Otherwise, it charges very slowly.
Right, okay.
As in, it's possibly not even a full charge overnight, which can make it hard depending on the sort of distances you're traveling. Yeah, so 3-phase is recommended, although that's not the easiest process to actually put on.
I know nothing about that. How would you go about getting 3-phase electricity onto your house?
Well, at my parents' place, they just put in a Domino's pizza restaurant around the corner, and they had to bring the power from the main exchange, because even if you have like another property in the area that's using 3-phase, you can't piggyback off of their 3-phase. You have to get it direct from like the transformer, the main access point. And so they had to, dig up the roads and everything, and it was a pretty lengthy process, and I imagine very expensive.
Wow, okay. Well, that's not great then, is it?
I don't know what the process is in other countries, if it's a bit different. Maybe it's a bit more readily available. But yeah, certainly in Australia, it's not that easy unless you just happen to be very close to one of those points.
Wow, that's so strange. So potentially buying a Tesla car in Australia, you would have to then make a modification to your property and spend quite a bit of money to do so.
I mean, again, you can use regular mains, so it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't necessarily let you put that off entirely. Just do your research and see, the kilometers that you're going to be driving and that. Because, even a half-filled battery can get you a fair way if you're only doing a short commute most days. Possibly doesn't matter. Also, if you're not fully discharging the battery, obviously you don't need to charge it from 0 to 100, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So if you're only bringing it down to 50 and then you bring it up to 100 again, you're always going to have a full tank, quote-unquote, available to you. It's just something to be aware of, that it's not... Because like these chargers here we were talking about at the shopping centres, they're all the superchargers, and they all use the 3-phase, and they can charge your vehicle in, I don't know exactly, like 1 to 3 hours or something. So, you can pull in, have it charging up while you go have lunch at the shopping centre or whatever, and then go on about your journey.
It's actually really clever, isn't it?
So, yeah, you can have that at your house, and that would be super convenient, but it's probably not necessary. Again, I probably should look at my numbers. Maybe you can charge completely overnight these days. I know it was a struggle earlier on, but, technology improves.
Okay.
But, yeah, just do your research.
Yeah. Not that I would be in the market for an electric car, but maybe someone out there listening is.
You might get an electric bike.
Hey, I could get an electric bike. I think that'd be a cool way to go.
They're becoming a bit more of a thing.
In a motorbike form, or just in a kind of like a scooter type form?
Well, the two I was thinking of are both an electric motorbike and an electric push bike. The electric push bikes are getting a lot of traction, but there's certainly some electric motorbikes that are on the market.
Okay, because that'd be something that would be really cool, actually. And that you probably wouldn't need to make any major modifications to your house or to your power supply.
Well, that would have a far smaller battery, so yeah, no, you'd be fine. Following on from Tesla to another Elon Musk related story, we have SpaceX doing some interesting things with high school students, as in collaborating with them to do various experiments. I saw an article on this on the ABC, and it's interesting. I don't know what's necessarily going to come from it, but it seems like there's a few schools in Australia and maybe across the world that have let a number of students of theirs devise various experiments that will get sent up to the International Space Station and then carried out. The results will come back within a couple of weeks, and they will analyze the data and present their findings. What do you think about this, Alex?
I think it's fantastic, honestly. I mean, really, I suppose any way that you can get the younger generation, and I guess everyone else, the general public as a whole, involved in space travel, in my mind, is a good thing. Because, I mean, I think it's really something that humanity is going to have to look to in the future if we want to. Well, I mean, obviously, if we want to move off the Earth and go to that, but I think also as well, you know, we're not going to be able to stay here forever. Unfortunately, we've probably done some pretty terrible damage to this planet already. So, you know, if we do want to survive beyond Earth, we've got to start looking at space travel a lot more seriously than we do now.
Yeah, and it seems like the expression of interest from the students has been really huge as well, which is always a great thing because, like you say, engagement in these sort of, even not necessarily space travel, but just sciences in general is always good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's also probably quite difficult to get students involved in things like this. And, you know, if you have them involved in an actual project where you have, you know, their experiments actually going into space, it's fantastic. And from what I understand, it was all part of the idea that came from a startup company somewhere.
Yes, in Australia.
Yeah.
What was it called? Cube Cider or something?
Something to that effect.
Cube Rider.
Cube Rider, there you go.
So, yeah, they're sending a bunch of Raspberry Pis up into space, which is not actually a dessert, but rather a very small computer that I'm sure a number of people that listen to this podcast would be familiar with. Some might not be. It's a really very cheap computer. You can get them for... I don't actually know which model they were using in this because it doesn't say in the story, but some are actually as cheap as like $10, and then some go up into like the 30s. But either way, super cheap and quite powerful for the money. And yeah, they've designed all these experiments that really just, I think, read data from sensors mainly, so it's sort of a data-driven experiment, analysing the real world and crunching the numbers.
Which is all very interesting and all very fascinating. Hopefully cultivating a lot of young new scientific minds.
Yes.
It's a pity my mind never really went along in that direction. I mean, I think as far as I go with science is being very interested in what it has to offer and appreciating that it is a very excellent thing without actually being that involved in it in any way, shape or form.
You just want the results and how they can benefit you.
Yeah, I want the results and how they benefit me. And, you know, just the general population as well. I like to see that. I like it when cool stories come out of science as well and you hear, you know, teleporting matter. Have we teleported matter yet, do you know?
I don't think so. No.
I remember hearing we had.
I think there's some people have claimed that like photons or something, but that's really not practical at all. And I don't think the technology that they used for that actually could be used in any practical sense. So while it's cool, it's kind of, useless. So far, at least. Maybe it'll lead to something, but I'm skeptical on that.
Teleportation does just seem impossible then, doesn't it?
Little bit, yeah.
I mean, maybe it's possible. Because, I mean, if you think about it, everything that does seem impossible, or everything that we've kind of achieved now, that all our great scientific discoveries that did seem impossible in the past are now just possible through science.
Absolutely, and I definitely hope that it comes to fruition, but that one might be a fair way out. I'm not sure if it does happen that we'll see it in our lifetimes.
What do you think the great scientific discovery of this century will be, David? Do you have any ideas?
That's a hard question.
It is.
Nothing's coming really to the forefront of my mind. I'd possibly say something about artificial intelligence. Not necessarily as a segue to our next story, but...
Conveniently a segue to our next story anyway.
I don't know whether we'll get to the singularity, which, for those that might not be aware, is that computer artificial intelligence becoming somewhat sentient. But we'll probably get almost close enough, I reckon, that it might not actually matter, or that there'll be enough debate that it might not matter.
An interesting, potentially scary thought.
Yes.
I think Elon Musk's been saying a fair bit about AI recently, hasn't he?
Yes, and promoting the potential dangers, and that we need to have a lot of safeguards in place.
Well, I mean, it's very true, though, isn't it?
Probably sensible.
Yeah, he's not the only one who says it, though. Isn't Stephen Hawking talking about AI and it being the single greatest threat to humanity?
Probably. I don't know if that's really Hawking's area of expertise, though.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean...
He's a great mind, so I'm not going to, dismiss what he says, but he's a physicist, first and foremost.
Yeah.
Not a computer scientist.
Mm.
Which Elon Musk definitely is.
Yes. But I mean, at the same time, I don't think you necessarily have to be a computer scientist to recognise the danger that AI could pose. Because in the end, it's not really about what AI is so much as what it can achieve.
Yeah. And I think there'll be a lot of, to start with in terms of AI, a lot of very focused AI to help us with particular problems, as we discussed last week. But then slowly becoming more generalized. And then that's where maybe it could pose a problem. It's still a long way out, but it is important to think about these things before they get out of control, absolutely. But I don't think the risk is huge anytime soon. Just something to be aware of in the broader sense, I think, for anyone researching these areas.
Well, do you know what I think, David? I think that we will probably be dead by the time AI, AI becomes sophisticated enough to pose any real danger. And for me, that's a very comforting thought. I don't know about you.
I don't necessarily agree with that, I suppose, because I feel like it really depends on the people that are implementing these things, because we'll get to something quite likely that could do a lot of potential damage to us if it was hooked up to systems that had the potential to do that damage to us.
Okay, so you're talking about things like defense systems that work with AI technology.
Yes. Hopefully no one will hook those two things together anytime soon, but if they did, I mean, even just a bug in the program could do that, even if it doesn't really make too much of a decision. You know what I mean? So as long as people don't do that, I agree with you. But some stupid things have happened throughout history. So,
well, I mean, who realistically is probably going to be sitting at the forefront of AI technology? It'll be the military, right?
Yes, probably.
And the military obviously are the ones who have the defense systems. So
yes, but the military spend vast sums of money on all sorts of research. A lot of it doesn't see the light of day, and a lot of it comes out to be great consumer-level technology, but not really that practical for military applications. So, that doesn't necessarily worry me that they're the ones probably at the forefront of the technology. But yeah, they've just got to make sure they're careful with it, which I guess is probably what Elon Musk and others are actually saying. An AI has been created to compete at DOTA, or Dota 2, a popular esports game, and it recently beat one of the world champions at it. So I guess this is just following on from AlphaGo that Google created that beat the world champions at the Go board game, and just proving that more and more complex games, depending on how you define complexity, AI is able to do better than humans.
Yes. Have you ever played Dota? Just quickly.
I haven't. I know the basic idea of what it is. It's one of these MOBA type games. Which, what does that actually stand for again?
I don't know. I know it as a tower defense game.
It's not really tower defense though. You have lanes, don't you? That you sort of send.
Yeah, you do. So you play across 3 lanes. I don't really know the official term for it. I always thought they were tower defense because you defend towers, but I'm not sure if that's actually true or not.
Multiple online battle arena. Anyway, clearly we're both not experts of this, having not actually played it.
Oh, I actually did play a bit of Dota.
Oh, okay.
Not very well, and not for very long. But yeah, I played. I had a friend who used to play it, and he kind of got me involved in it a tiny bit. So I played maybe 20 matches or something like that, and got absolutely smashed in every single one.
Does seem like there's a lot going on. The researchers involved in this project said there's really so many rules that there's no way you could sort of brute force a winning strategy, which is to say sort of have an algorithm that knows exactly what to do in every situation because it's well versed in every possible combination that could happen in a game. It's literally not possible in this game. So in this case, what they did is they had the computer play itself a huge number of times, analyze the results, and constantly refining how it plays. Starting at random, purely random, and it said that it went through lifetimes of experience playing itself, and that's how it was able to achieve the end result of beating one of the best players in the world.
Yes, it did. So basically, the where we're getting the information from this from is from an article published to The Verge by James Vincent on the 14th of August, titled "Did Elon Musk's AI champ destroy humans at video games? It's complicated." So basically, the type of Dota that they played 1 versus 1. So it was one person playing against the AI bot. And it was under extremely limited conditions. So they were actually both playing the same hero. And they were playing a hero that's actually not a very versatile hero. So it's just basically a hero that is quite easy to use. You don't need to use any complex combinations with it. It's just basically has a few attacking moves. And I think it might attack from a distance. And that's not really typically the way that Dota is played. You usually play it 5 players against 5 players. And you play it with a wide variety of heroes as well. So, well, I'm sure the AI has the capability to do this. This particular AI probably wouldn't actually be able to win in a team situation, just because it doesn't seem to have a lot of versatility with its playing style.
No, I mean, that's true. So they did reduce some of the complexity. But it still did beat one of the best players in the world in a fairly fair setup, I would say. Like you say, same hero, one-on-one. But you're right, it is limited at this point.
It is limited.
Still damn impressive, though, I would say.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I mean, all you've got to do is do that on a bigger scale to, I suppose, get it to actually be able to win at Dota.
Just got to keep trading it.
Yeah, that's it.
Speaking of video games, did you see that we keep talking about Pokemon Go all the time, but Mewtwo is coming?
Mewtwo is coming, yes. Along with a complicated rating system that I don't really understand. You've got to be invited to raid somewhere, but you can only be invited if you've raided somewhere else. So, I don't know really how this is supposed to work, but there you go.
Were you a fan of Mew and Mewtwo in the originals?
Well, I mean, what's the fun in Mew and Mewtwo, really? In what they are in Pokemon, because they're just invincible, immortal Pokemon, really, aren't they? And where's the fun in that? Also, Are they supposed to be Pokemon gods? Is that what they're supposed to be?
I never knew what they were supposed to be. Were they explained in one of the movies at one point?
I think there was a movie about them. I don't remember the explanation for them, but yeah, there was definitely a movie. Yeah, I don't know. The whole idea behind Pokemon's a bit fuzzy because have they always been there, or were they some kind of science experiment gone wrong? And if so, perhaps, would it be possible to replicate this science experiment on Earth here and have real life Pokemon? Because I think we can all agree that'd be cool.
Maybe. Some of them are a bit terrifying. I don't know how the Pokeballs would work, though. That sort of comes back to your teleporting technology. Yeah,
it does a bit, doesn't it? One of my kind of main concerns with Pokemon, though, is the way that so the main character, Ash, his mum just allows him to wander off and capture Pokemon. She doesn't really seem to care that he's, left home alone. He's a 12-year-old kid?
Yes. Maybe the Pokemon world is just very nice? Or people mature earlier?
Well, but I mean, these Pokemon are dangerous. Like, they're capable of murder. And there is, very early on in the Pokemon series, there's a part where Ash is attacked by some wild bird Pokemon. And they seem quite intent on murdering him.
And I suppose there is Team Rocket, so not everyone can be super nice.
Yes, also, who funds Team Rocket? That's a big Pokemon question for me. Where do they get their funding from? Unless, all their off time is just spent raising money for these ridiculous crimes that they're trying to commit and never succeed because of one single Pikachu.
But are the two people mainly featured in the show just, part of a larger organization? And there's, a guy with a cat or something, so maybe all the other agents are super successful, and that funds these two bumbling idiots that are going after Ash all the time.
But, who's there to performance manage them? Who's here to look at the results at the end and say, well, team, whatever the other teams are, Team Rainbow, Team Skylark, Team Treebeard. Maybe
they're just related to someone high up in the organization.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
they're untouchable.
They're probably the children. Well, that explains their relationship as well, because their relationship's always been a bit weird and inexplicable, hasn't it? That's probably it. They're probably the son and the daughter of two higher ranking, or of a higher ranking person in the whole Rocket Pty Ltd.
Yes.
Corporation.
There we go. We've solved it. Even though there probably is some law somewhere that actually explains it all.
Yeah. Would be interesting, actually, to read the backstory to Pokemon and find out.
Must be a pretty big universe at this point.
I'd say it would be, yeah. There are actually, I think there's over 1,000 Pokemon episodes now. Which is quite a lot.
And there's probably manga and all sorts.
Oh, there would be, definitely, yeah.
And fiction.
Yes.
Don't know how much of it's canon, but
such an exciting world to explore. Or do you know actually what I think is a very exciting world? The Warhammer world, the Warhammer 40,000.
Oh yeah, there's a huge amount of books written on that, isn't there?
A massive amount of books,
all by different authors too.
Yeah, which is no bad thing. I mean, it's really cool to kind of learn these stories. You never got into Warhammer though, did you? You never played it.
No. Well, did you ever really play the tabletop version? I know you had a lot of them, and I know you painted them often, but did you actually play it that much?
No, I didn't play it that much. No, I just really collected them and painted them, which was good fun. But I feel it was a bit like Pokemon cards, because I did the exact same thing to Pokemon cards. I never played the game. I don't even know how to play it.
Yes.
I just collected a huge amount of them, and then I don't even know what I did with them.
No, it's funny that. Apparently it's not a bad game, though.
At least we didn't do the same thing with Magic.
No, we did actually play that, even though we didn't play the proper rules.
Did we not play the proper rules?
Well, I mean, we had some house rules. We mostly played the proper rules. But I remember, when we had no cards and you pick up 3, that's never in anything. We just made that up.
It really rewards you for not having any cards in your hand, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, it did speed up the game, but it really advantaged people with low-cost decks.
How did we come up with these house rules? It must have been you that came up with them, David, because I'm sure I didn't.
I don't recall if it was me or not. It could have been. It could have been Axeman.
That's a good point, yeah.
But you know that one tournament we played in Bendigo?
Oh, yes.
And I got to a point where I had no cards in my hand, and I picked up 3, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, right. It's not a real rule. My bad.
Yeah, I remember I played this guy, and he got super mad at me because I never tapped my mana.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is actually a fair point, because you should tap your mana, because how are you supposed to remember it?
That's true.
But yeah, I actually remember winning a game in that particular tournament.
No, you did super well. I don't think I won a game.
I don't think I did super well. I won one game from memory.
No, I know you won at least more than one. How many did we play? Like 5-ish? I want to say.
Was it?
I think, and then you won 2 or 3, and I won 0.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That was where I got my snake deck from. I remember that.
Yes, because it was one of those ones where it was a new set being released, and you just had to build the deck with the cards that you got.
That was actually super cool.
Yeah.
Did you get a main deck and then you got booster packs, or did you just get a whole bunch of booster packs?
You got a tournament box and then like 3 booster packs.
That's actually really good fun, eh?
Yeah. I think Axeman still does it on occasion.
I feel like I should do something like that again. Maybe next time I go down to Victoria, David, we'll find a magic session to go to.
I saw this article about YouTube testing showing current viewer counts on their videos. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos, as I think maybe you do too, Alex. I thought this was maybe interesting from maybe a psychology point of view, potentially. Because while showing an extra number on a video is not that interesting, I wonder if that would make more people likely to watch a video with a higher view count than a lower view count of people viewing like right this second.
That's a very interesting point, actually. And
I'm inclined to think that it would.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you saw a video with a fairly low view count, but with a decent number of people watching it, you would think that it is perhaps worth watching and something that is trending right now. Yes.
Which I imagine is why they're trialing it. And it's probably sort of ties into a little bit of their live broadcasting stuff as well, which they're doing, they're trying to promote more and more to compete with Twitch in that. And on all those videos, of course, they've got live chats going on at the same time. So maybe this is just more of they want to have sort of maybe live interaction on pre-recorded content, I'm thinking, potentially.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't move to that point at some point. I mean, having static, boring old comments can't be the way of the future.
Thanks again for joining me, Alex.
Not a problem, David. Pleasure as always.
You can follow and get in touch with us on Twitter at Tangential Soup, and you can find this week's show notes with more information about today's topics at tsp.fm/19. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with anyone that you think might also. And we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Ciao.
So, Alex, what's the roast for today?
So today's roast is a lamb roast. Really, for me, I think the main difficulty with roasts has been getting the time in the oven right, so that you get it pink on the inside, which is something that I've struggled with so far. But I've actually figured out that for the majority of roasts, even if you're recommended to keep them in the oven for multiple hours, for a beef roast, you probably need an hour and a half or under and usually it'll be under, depending on the size of the roast and the heat that you're cooking it at. And for a lamb roast, I'm doing this particular, it's a leg of lamb, and I'm doing it for an hour and 20 minutes. And it should be that will be nice and pink on the inside and still, crispy on the outside. That's my hope for this particular roast. And I just do it with simple veggies, so just some sweet potato and some just normal potatoes chucked in the pan with it. And that's going to be it. I might do up a red wine sauce, I think.
Okay. Have you cooked much else in recent times?
I have actually been doing a bit of cooking recently. So I've been doing, or what I've done is I cooked some enchiladas last night.
Okay. Bit of Mexican?
Yeah, for Samantha, which are really easy because I actually just used the packeted sauce, and then you just fry up some chicken with some onion and chuck the sauce over the top, and then put them all in the enchiladas, and then chuck them in the oven with some cheese on top. So that's actually really easy, and probably not very healthy though.
Not the best.
Not necessarily the best, no. And on Monday night I did salmon fillets with garlic and butter and asparagus. And that all just goes in the oven together as well. Chuck it all in the oven, just drizzle the butter garlic mix over the top, and then bam, just chuck it in there for 15-20 minutes.
How'd that turn out? Because fish is not necessarily always the easiest thing to cook.
I find salmon's pretty easy to cook, and I really like salmon as well.
Okay.
So, look, it wasn't amazing because I think, if you really want to do salmon well, you've got to... I like salmon with the skin on, and I think that you've got to get the skin crispy. So I find that it's a lot easier to do in a frying pan. So what you do is you fry it on really high heat on the skin, crisp up the skin, and then lower the heat a tiny bit, flip the salmon over, give it maybe another minute to 2 minutes on the other side, and then that should be it. And it should be nice and pink on the inside when you cook it like that. When I did it in the oven, though, I didn't do that, and I actually cooked it skin down, which I'm not sure was necessarily the best idea, because the skin doesn't taste very nice if it's not crispy. But other than that, it was nice. Probably used a bit too much butter as well. I think it's easy to get carried away with butter because you think, well, you can't have too much butter, but you can actually have too much butter. Too much butter is a thing that it's possible to have.
I guess that's where most of the flavour comes from, though.
Well...
Or it brings out the flavour.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Yeah, but still. You can overdo it with butter. It's very possible to do. Oh, I made a hamburger. So the hamburger is actually a hamburger of my own design. Not that there's anything really original.
Ooh, the Alex.
It's not actually the Alex. No, I don't... It actually has a name. It's called the Caroline. And it's called the Caroline for fairly complicated reasons that I won't go into on the podcast.
Okay.
But yeah, it's called the Caroline. So the method for this particular hamburger is minced beef. So you get some minced beef and then mix the minced beef with... I use about 200 to 300 grams for two hamburger patties. And you mix the hamburger mince with half a diced onion, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, and an egg, and some breadcrumbs. Or I actually didn't have breadcrumbs, so I used flour. But flour, breadcrumbs, same thing, right? And then you mix all that together, and then you make hamburger patties out of that and fry those up. And then you get a bun. So I just used a kind of a crappy wholemeal bun for this particular one, but obviously the better bun you get, the nicer it'll be.
Yeah.
And so you chuck... So the order goes, you put the patty on first, and then you put mayonnaise and tomato sauce on, and then you put beetroot, and then you put carrot, and then you put shredded carrot, and then you put red onion, and then you put tomato, and then you put iceberg lettuce, and then you seal the bun, and if you can fit your face around it, that's what you eat.
It does sound like a healthy stack.
It is, and it makes an okay burger actually.
No, it sounds pretty tasty. I always like a burger with either beetroot or pineapple in it.
Yes, I actually agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of pineapple in burgers, to be honest. I don't know why it is. I just not like I like pineapple on its own as the fruit, but I don't really like it on burgers or anything savoury.
Not pizza?
No, I don't really like it on pizza either, I'm afraid to say.
Mm.
I do like... There's a burger... Do you guys have a place called Burger Fuel in Victoria?
Doesn't ring a bell. Maybe not.
It's like a New Zealand burger chain.
Okay.
And they do a burger called the Bastard Burger, and that actually has mango on it.
Mango? Okay.
Yes, and that's...
Could work. Could work.
Well, I mean, it's just kind of like a sweet thing that you add into the burger, and I think
I have mango chutney, so...
Well, exactly, yeah.